Hello everyone. So I wanted to do another update video just to kind of show a little bit more of the creative process. I'm currently actually streaming this on Twitch, so if anything pops up on the recording box, it's actually people talking in chat. I haven't had any viewers besides, it looks like 2 right now, so we'll see what happens. But I figured I would go over the first step to creating any new set. Once you've done your spreadsheeting and everything. So especially with me, the first thing I tend to do is I drop everything down into the bronze tier. The reason why is because you want to establish a baseline. You want everything to be put around the same exact baseline. So if you have your bronze cards set up, then you know exactly how strong your silver and your gold cards can be. Because on average, silver and gold cards are about 2 to 3 points stronger on average for each tier up than a bronze card. So if you build a bronze card, then you can then build future cards that are just either enhancements of the previous card. That's just for the sake of balance, because you're just basically making stronger versions of something. And on top of that, when you build bronze cards, you also need to factor in a lot in the aspect that people are allowed to play 2 of these in this current game mechanic. So because of that, you want to isolate these effects to not have continuous or infinite loops or things like that, where if your opponent has 2 of them, then they technically just win the game. These types of things happen in card game development all the time, so my goal is to create the best thing that I can make. So these are our bronze cards. As you can tell, I've already made the items. The items are specific to their own thing, and we're going to go into the process of this. So as I mentioned in the last video, Dragonsworn and Spears of the Dragon are kind of a similar thing, and they're supposed to be direct parallels. So in the typical way that the game is structured, usually a black card has a higher risk with a better payoff, while white cards have options. So that's what we're going to get in this situation. And they're probably going to do very similar to the same thing. I've even made it where both of them are 3 power by default, usually because bronze, white or black cards are typically weaker than anything else because they categorize as wilds and they can be played as anything. So we'll go ahead and put the typings in here. So Dragonsworn are going to be, they're going to have the typing. This is strange because Dragonsworn are everywhere. Primarily in this one, they're from Murandi. So we're going to go with Murandian. And we're going to say that they are civilian, or we're going to say they're, I don't even know, possibly, yeah, we'll say they're citizen. No, that's redundant. Yeah, citizen, and we'll say that's it. So they're Murandian citizens. That's it. And then Spears of the Dragon, we're going to categorize them as Aiel, because that's what they are. We'll note them as soldiers, because anybody that's a Spear of the Dragon is actually a former warrior society of the dragon wearing the headband. And we're going to say Aiel Waste, because that's their category. So I actually did this kind of backwards. This one up here should actually be backwards. It should be Citizen Murandian. And that way you always put like their origin or their place of reference as the last thing. It's just a thing that I do for habits. So I mean, I can go through and list all the typings, but that's not getting into the meat of it. So just kind of explaining how it would go. The Dragonsworn, in the context of the story, they are they're kind of like monsters. They show up, they are like refugees that have a purpose, and they have conviction, and they are clogging up the streets and causing riots and causing fights and things like that. So you want something that's kind of like, as soon as it enters the table, there's gonna be a problem. So what I can do is make something that has not existed. So the best thing to equate this to is I'm actually going to lower their power by 1. And I'm going to make these into the Wild Musters, because I haven't made them yet. And I realize that it seems like a cop-out, but the thing that I would stress is that we're now at a point in the game where a wild muster is not going to win the game. Or if it does win the game, it's going to win the game as often as a regular muster because it's going to fill a row. So this enables players the ability to play 4 musters in their deck, which is a little nuts. For reference, a muster is these. So in the first set, we had the Wolf Pack. We had the... oh, now you get into my fun stuff. So that's an error that happens whenever this thing... I don't use whatever it's called, Microsoft Excel. I use LibreOffice, and sometimes stuff gets lost in translation with the save files, so I can fix that later. But the equivalent is Wolfpack. Wolfpack is a 3-power bronze in set 1. It says, when played, you play another copy of this unit from the deck. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drop that bit into this card, and all it is giving people the ability, because you have to remember that the Dragonsworn just seem to multiply out of nowhere, and they are chaos in a sense. And the Spears of the Dragon are chaos in a sense for the side of the light, because they are retreating from their convictions. Again, this is all like parallels to each other. And I think it's things that you don't necessarily notice until you really dive deep into the story. And the facts is that I have to make them universally weaker, because what's the point? You know, people would just play these over anything else. I honestly don't know if these are going to be an automatic include in anybody's deck whenever they're playing. I have my friends that are trying to build meta decks for this. But the reality is that I think that 5 sets in, you're okay to add another muster to the game. This isn't a rehash of an old ability either, because it has not existed on white or black cards yet before. So most of the cards get, most of the other cards. So for instance, like in Great Hunt, we had, well, not Great Hunt. Was it Great Hunt? Yeah, we had the Ajas. So I had Black Aja and White Aja. They both existed. They were 1 point weaker, and they did the exact same effect as the other Aja cards, which were 1 point stronger, and they were just lords for the color. So, which is a +1 overall to everything on the table that is of their color. And furthermore, like when we get into Dragon Reborn, we do have things like the ships, and we have things like the horses, like Stepper here. I've made new horses that are stronger, but the situation is still going to be that way, where eventually there may be a white and a black horse. I could have potentially done that with Pips and Geoden in this one, but I wanted to keep them into their own color lock, and I'll get to that later. Apologize for drinking something while I film. That seems a little silly, but I'm also streaming, so I'm allowed to. So that covers that. Like, we already have this done. Now I just need a quote for Dragonsword and a quote for Spears of the Dragon, and more or less the cards are done. So you'll also notice that I pull all these up like this, because every card's going to kind of have a parallel. Usually whenever you have a red card, you're going to have a green card that does something similar or counters it directly. Or you'll have a blue card and you have a gray card where one will do one thing, one will do the other, and they kind of get their own color identities and do what they do, while yellow and brown also have their own color identities. Everything has their own thing, but I try to give everybody a little piece of the pie, if that makes sense. And that kind of keeps the game universally balanced, where you're not going to have yellow being stronger than brown. Because they both functionally do 2 very different things. And that gets into a whole bunch of stuff like game design and other things like that, where, certain games that we won't mention, they tend to let things bleed over. And there's not a problem with a little bit of bleed over, but the issue comes when there's a lot of bleed over and the game just kind of seems like there's one way to play and no other way. So if, for instance, I make a Strongman and I make Scouts, obviously the Scouts are not going to be as powerful as the Strongman. So just by default, the Scouts, even, like, I might have to depict in this picture multiple dudes and only one Strongman in the Strongman picture, and I could equivalent them to be the same strength. But the Strongman's obviously going to do something different than the Scouts. Well, the Scouts are going to, let's just say, Scouts will say that they're Carinian. Well, they're going to be Carinian, but we're going to call them soldiers, and we're going to call them, we're going to say that they are soldiers and Carian Carhinian. I'll fix the spelling later. I probably spelled it wrong. And then the Strongman is going to be a civilian. So we're not going to call this a citizen. We're going to call it civilian because I'm weird and it's annoying me. Okay, so we have, well, let's spelled it wrong. Okay, maybe it's, no, it's a civilian. Okay, so we'll call him civilian, and we'll say that he is, I won't say Mirandian, I'll just say civilian, and I'll put traveling show, because honestly none of them are, like, they're named as the story progresses, but they're not really, they don't really have their place of origin emphasized outside of the Chavanas, which might be in, you know, the acrobats, but we'll get to that later. So soldiers, Carinian, scouts. So for instance, what are they going to do? Let's just say that, again, it's going to highlight like, hey, we already have text for this. So I'll put for the scouts, so I'll say once while in play, if an enemy, so maybe we'll do a little bit of bleed over, I'm not sure. Maybe we'll do like a synergy strategy. But once while in play, if your opponent, or if an enemy unit is placed on the row, on this unit's row, you may, you know, I think it's time for dice roll mechanics. We'll just go with that. So you may roll a die. So all of the thing was the Band of the Red Hand, everything's going to have dice. Like, that was already something that I thought about, but I wasn't sure if I was going to do. You may roll a 6-sided dice. Okay, so because of another thing that I do, I emphasize important words whenever I make card effects. So 6-sided dice is referencing a actual thing that you need to use at this point. Same with enemy, same with, like, again, when I put units, unit is typically capitalized, row is typically capitalized. These are all words that I capitalize to emphasize to people, this is something you're doing. In addition, I will capitalize roll, because all of these are saying emphasis on this word. Roll, that's an action. 6-sided dice, that's a piece of the game. That's a piece of the game board. Units row, that's a location that you're doing things. Enemy, that's categorizing an opponent's card entering the table. And once is just the start of the word. And play is technically a status, like it's an action. I'm in play. So all these words get capitalized for that reason, because it's supposed to draw the eye and keep you focused on what's going on. So you can roll a 6-sided dice. Once you've rolled this 6-sided dice, what does it do? So it's going to say you can, it seems really strong to do that, but deal damage to that unit equal to the result. So again, this might be one of the first 1 strength units in the game, because here's the problem. What does this do? The average base power of any bronze card in my game is 6. So if you roll a 6-sided dice, that means that you have a chance of dealing 6 damage to something that just entered the table. Because of that, you have to equate the 6 to the character. Now granted, there's a 1 in 6 chance of that happening, so the odds of it happening are extremely low. So could I get away with 2 points and you could have a shot at having a 8 value bronze? Yes, but on top of that, since most cards are not 6 value when they get put on the table, this card has a chance of just assassinating anything and being a menace. So I have to think from the perspective of like a lot of games all at one time, thinking about what am I going to do if they become too powerful. But I think that right now we're going to put this one in the test phase. Green is supposed to be the color of removal, so I'm going to go ahead and set this guy's bar at 2 points of power, which means that if you roll a 1, you've got a 3 power bronze, which is awful. You roll a 2, you get a 4 power bronze, which is still awful. 3 is 5 power. That's pretty okay. 6 on par, or 4 is on par. 5 is exceptional, or 5 is good, and 6 is exceptional. So that means that you're nice and even. But that's going to be my gimmick with the green cards for Band of the Red Hand. So all the stuff with Band of the Red Hand, you're going to have your dice there. Maybe you get your fancy dice from Crowns or whatever that have the little hands on them that people made years ago. But now we have to make the equivalent for the Strongman. Because again, this is also a green card that is a reactionary card. Those don't exactly exist yet. So this is going to be like the new gimmick for green. So when we move on, we're going to have the Strongman. Let's just put him at 4 points of power, because that already gives me a baseline of what he's going to do. And what's the Strongman going to do? The Strongman is more than likely just going to sit there, and I might make a new Lightning Rod card. I don't know. I'm trying to think in my head. So we're going to go with, we'll do a Wind Blade. So maybe we'll flip it up a bit, because usually Wind Blades are on greens and While in Plays are on reds. So, or once While in Play. So these are like reversing things, and you're getting more diversity in the decks. So we'll say Wind Blade, you can, Wind Blade, you can, let's say, Wind Blade, let's go with something like, let's say, Wind Blade. Sorry, I have people messaging me on Discord because I posted on Discord. We'll say, Wind Blade, we're going to target one enemy unit on the row. And again, we didn't capitalize because I'm out of practice because I haven't done this in a little bit. But I think this is going to be cool. So, target one enemy unit on the row, and draw one card. This guy might be really good. Draw one card for each point of difference between this unit and the enemy unit. And the targeted unit, sorry. Then discard one card for each card drawn through this effect. So the Strongman is like a really cool card. He gets to be 4 points, but that means that his max draw is 3. Standard, and you're also cycling this. You know, I'm not even going to do the discard. Then place one card. My bad. I'm going to give it the then place one card in your hand on the bottom of your deck for each card drawn through this effect. So what this means is that you don't get to set up your discard pile, and it also means that you get a bit of draw power. He is a 4 power bronze card. I might have to make him 3, but you also have to rely on pinging down opponents, so you have to target something weak in order for it to work, and it's just kind of cool in that respect. So again, you're getting a reactionary thing. Again, it's very red. It kind of hinders back to the original bits of red card effects with what I did with Rand in the first set, which was a silver card, and he was a 2 power silver, but he gained +5 power for each card your opponent had already taken as a victory card. So he was a 12 power potential silver card, which was really awesome. He was super, super strong. But again, you had to be way behind to do it. So red's the comeback color, and that's kind of what I'm re-emphasizing with the Strongman. So that's a bit of the creative process. I'm going to be working on this today. I just wanted to give you guys a bit of an update and a little bit more info about how the actual game design process works. I tend to do this where I will pick one and move on to the next, and that way we have nice even balance. So either way, I hope you guys have a good rest of the day. Thank you very much for tuning in, and see you later. Bye-bye.